Some important and helpful information about shame and guilt. There is healthy guilt. It's when we have discomfort, when we did something objectively wrong, when we've hurt someone's feelings, when we did something that really was not okay. And we can take ownership and responsibility for it and ask for forgiveness. Unhealthy guilt is when we acted against unreasonable, irrationally high standards, those kind that we see in perfectionism. And then shame is that intensely painful feeling of feeling like you're fundamentally flawed. And often this happens with perfectionism or setting ourselves up to be perfect and to think that because we know the information, we should be able to behave in a certain way. And the key to resolving shame and this unhealthy guilt is self-compassion. Self-compassion, studied very vigorously by Kristen Neff, has been shown to be really, really helpful when dealing with shame and guilt. It is a practice of having empathy and taking action. The action really is to open up our hearts to be kind and gentle with ourselves, to be reasonable and loving towards ourselves, and to be doing that with one another. And to remember that you're human, and that to be human means there's no such thing as having a perfect body. There's no such thing as having perfect behavior. There's no such thing as having a perfect day. And that you are not alone in this suffering, that to sometimes not be able to follow through, to struggle with being able to make changes and choices that you want to be able to make, that this in fact is a part of human suffering and that you're not alone. The National Institutes for Clinical Application and Behavioral Medicine have been incredible in deciphering the difference between these definitions, and it can be really, really healing and helpful for many of us to learn about this, that guilt potentially can drive us to seek forgiveness when we objectively have done something wrong. But unhealthy guilt really puts an emphasis on punishing ourselves for things that really aren't reasonable for us to do over time and change. And then what happens is we get trapped in feeling guilt and then develop a belief system about what kind of person we are because of these unreasonable expectations. And that can feed into a crippling effect on shame, shaming ourselves, and then believing that something is fundamentally wrong with us. So then therefore we cannot show up. We're not good enough. And then that leads to avoidance and disconnection from one another, and then potentially with yourself, and starting to drive the connection with things to make us feel better. This could be anything from overworking to using food or substances so that we can try to seek balance. Shame really, really is harmful in the ability to be able to make changes. And so using self-compassion really is the antidote. Thank you for listening.